Well, hello and welcome to Dementia Unplugged. I'm Jeannine Forrest, and I am thrilled that you are joining me today to talk about memory cafes. Before we get started, I do want to have you listen to a word from Kevin Jameson, the president of Dementia Unplugged.
Welcome. Please listen to this important message from the Dementia Society of America. All content, including any potential medical information, is provided as an informational resource only and is not to be used or relied on for any diagnostic or treatment process. It should not be used as a substitute for professional diagnosis, care, and treatment. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any healthcare decisions or for guidance about a specific medical condition. The opinions expressed and the content shared by Dr. Forrest are not necessarily the opinions and content of the Dementia Society of America. Thank you.
Now, before we get started talking about memory cafes, what I'd like to do is to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page when we talk about the word dementia. The word dementia is really an umbrella term that indicates a whole variety, a whole host of subtypes of conditions that form a condition called dementia. And just like the word cancer, there are many different types of cancers. There are many, many different types of dementias. And regardless of the type, we'll connect it to looking at the benefit and the utility of participating in memory cafes as a real way of connecting socially. So there are many different types of dementias I had just mentioned, and the most common that you may be familiar with are Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body dementia, frontal temporal, vascular dementia, and then we can have a mixed dementia. So regardless of the type, I will hope by the end of our time together, you'll learn a little bit more on how memory cafes can be of benefit to people with a wide-ranging host of reasons that they do have a dementia. When we talk about the word memory cafes, what I hope you glean from our talk today is the word social connection, an opportunity for engagement and joy. And I'll talk about both in-person memory cafes, and that's certainly how this whole wonderful idea was started, and virtual memory cafes as they are picking up speed and utility at this point. So we're going to talk about both. I will perhaps present maybe about 25 minutes on the subject, and then I'll open it up to question and answer. And then you can find that function through the chat button. I also wanted to let you know before we get started that we have been doing our Dementia Unplugged for almost 2 years now. And there are many pre-recorded sessions that you can find on YouTube and through the Dementia Society of America's website. So memory cafes, just to reinforce. A memory cafe is an opportunity really for people just to get together and enjoy themselves. That is the primary focus, an opportunity for people with varying dementias, from early to perhaps middle stages of dementia, to gather along with their care partners. This is a concept that started in about 1977 in the Netherlands. The first and they would call it the Alzheimer's Cafe. But as we talk about it now, it really has to do with any type of the dementias, but that's the way it started. Nearly 34 years later, it was in Minnesota. The J. Arthur's Memory Cafe opened up in 2011. So the US was a little bit slower to catch on to this concept, but it's much more international now. The UK, Australia, Canada, Europe, Brazil, being other countries that memory cafes are also located. Historically, memory cafes have been held in cafes or libraries, senior centers, schools. I've had the privilege of facilitating a few memory cafes, and it's been held in a wide variety of settings. The idea, it's local, but now with the internet, being able to connect virtually, we can meet people from all over the world. So what can you expect? Certainly in terms of a place, a setting, an in-person setting, you can be greeted by a host or hostess. Same too with a virtual cafe. Just maybe not being able to shake hands at this point in time or receive, a gentle hug. As I stated earlier, this is an opportunity for people with a wide-ranging diagnosis of some form of dementia, early to middle stages of dementia to gather along with their care partner. Now that care partner can be a spouse, a friend, children, grandchildren, and it is sort of what I would call bi-directional. There's enjoyment that's intended for both parties. A memory cafe allows sort of just a relaxed atmosphere, a place to unwind. And typically, they may be about 2 to 3 hours in duration. Virtually, that may be a bit long, and it may be cut shorter to perhaps an hour and a half. But there's a wide variety of activity with opportunities for conversation and just sort of being. The other piece that's important to know, it's either low cost or free. I know in Europe, many of these are sponsored by the government, so there's no cost at all. But within the States, sometimes an organization will be funded by someone else. So what do I see as the benefits, and other people describe as the benefits of attending and participating in a memory cafe? The number one is really a sense of decreased isolation. People with some form of dementia often speak of feeling isolated, being disconnected from not only family at times, but from just being able to get out and not being judged, not being stigmatized. Memory cafes focus on what people are able to do. That's called a sort of strength-based approach. And so there's no judgment, there's no quizzing, there's really sort of initiation. You're just welcome. What I love, it's an opportunity for people to develop real friendships who are living with a very shared experience. And so friendships can emerge. At times, there can be opportunities for teaching, modeling, how to spend time and communicate for people who may be impacted by dementia. And so it's just a loving, loving environment. And it also provides opportunity to volunteer. What you should know is what a memory cafe is not. It is not intended to provide respite care, meaning it is important that the care partner show up and participate and be engaged and active. This is not just a place or a space to have the person with some form of dementia do this alone. It's intended to be very interactive. It's also not an adult daycare, and it's not a support group, a formal support group. So this is not the time to kind of problem solve and figure out, sort of challenges that may be experienced during the dementia experience. That's what it's not intended to do. Those are, there's other formats for that. This is much more about joy, having fun, laughter. People talk about having a few tears here and there too, but it's really more, the focus is on connection. Let me tell you a little bit about what a program might look like or feel like. So in the beginning, there's introductions. No one has to share what type of dementia they have at all. And so it is really, you're just telling your name. There may be a time to have an icebreaker, knowing a little bit more, perhaps tell me your favorite ice cream. Tell me about a first job, things like that. Moving on, there may be a theme to the experience. We'll talk about that in more detail, but some may feel like a themed party. There's music and art as part of the experience. It's very sensory. Art, any of the creative arts really have no right or wrong, and that's what's lovely about this. People don't feel judged. There's conversation among all the participants, and at times there are snacks or lunch. So that's the general format, at least what I've experienced and here in the States, but my guess and when I've done my research is that this is a typical format for at least the in-person. What I think is a hallmark of the Memory Cafe experience is that it's very sensory. So there's less emphasis on being hyper cognitive or, again, very intellectual. That's not the point. It is to taste and feel and hear and see and smell, senses that we all share. And you'll see that threaded throughout different programs. So pay attention. What I find particularly motivating and I would say successful experience is that it encompasses many of these sensory experiences. So now I'd like to kind of share some ideas and thoughts and program activities that I've either participated in or something for you to consider to see if this is something that may be of interest to you. So imagine either walking in to a place or being connected virtually, and all of a sudden you're transported to this movie cafe, and there's you're smelling buttery salted popcorn, and there may be film clips from a variety of genres, and you talk about those, and maybe talk about your first dates of going to the movies, and favorite actors and actresses. it's around this theme that an entire program can be built, but you'll see how it's the hearing, it's the soundtracks, and maybe people sing along to the different soundtracks of the movies. This can certainly be a whole program surrounded by movies, and people are left with laughter and joy and sort of those memories attached to participating or maybe returning to their childhood or during early, dating memories growing up. Here's another thought. A day with Monet. This would be an art experience. Painting, sculpting, anything to do with the creative arts. Now, many of us, including myself, would never be considered an artist, but it's just the joy of creating something. And if we're talking about Monet, we may be talking about visiting France and having, French music in the background. And we might talk about the paintings that we create, or if anyone's been to France and has seen Giverny or any of the Monet different places where he lived and thrived. So a day with Monet could certainly be a whole virtual cafe experience. Here's another, dancing. Wow, so many things to be and to create when we talk about dancing. A whole spectrum of dancing. Could be a day at the ballet, right? Could be country western, waltz, swing, break dancing, who knows, right? And people have different abilities, physical abilities. That said, we could even do chair dancing. And then I've led this kind of experience before, where we've been singing and dancing in our chairs with music blaring, clapping, singing along, just having a grand old time. Talking about our first dances in high school and perhaps the romances that followed. So a memory cafe could be themed all about dancing. Holiday celebrations. Well, there are many that you can think of, from 4th of July. Here I have a visual about Thanksgiving. You walk in and there may be, turkeys gobbling in the background. There may be pumpkins, pumpkin pie, conversation icebreakers about holiday traditions surrounding Thanksgiving. I would even talk about the first time I held my very first Thanksgiving dinner for my family, and believe it or not, the whole turkey was caught on fire when I I was trying to baste it with sort of the last buttery sort of drippings, and it caught fire on the coil. My goodness, I don't think I'll ever forget the entire condo being filled with smoke as my family members rang the doorbell, and I greeted them in a large cloud of dark smoke and burnt turkey. So maybe some of you have those experiences to share as well. But holiday celebrations, for good and for worse, could certainly be a theme that I would encourage to think about. Another one here is island vacations, or any kind of vacations. So I want you to put on your thinking cap as you walk in, or you're connected online and you've already created this wonderful kind of smoothie with a tropical drink, perhaps with a little umbrella. You have luau music. You may be, dancing, feeling the spray and the sense of the ocean, relaxing. Starfish, looking at tropical fish, perhaps feeling the sun bake on your skin, all those sensory experiences, and shared vacations with family members. Another thought for a memory cafe. Perhaps some of you have attended memory cafes that have had this theme. So behind the scenes, there are guides to setting up memory cafe. You can Google a guide to setting up a memory cafe. And there are particular guidelines and sort of a set of instructions to help anyone get started. And they really are popping up all over the United States and across the world, and you can be connected. If you want to learn more about where memory cafes are located, you can certainly go to the Dementia Society of America's website and search for memory cafes, and there's a memory cafe locator. The Dementia Society of America is just a real cheerleader when it comes to memory cafes. There's one called the Dementia Mentors Organization, and this is a wonderful opportunity for people with a diagnosis of dementia to mentor someone newly diagnosed as well. And they may talk one-to-one or as a group, and they share this memory cafe experience at the same time. There is a whole memorycafedirectory.org that you can find, and they have daily, monthly cafes that are identified. So you can go to a cafe daily, which is a lovely benefit of having virtual cafes, or in person. Typically, we used to be hosting maybe once or twice a month. But this certainly gets around people who may have mobility issues or difficulty with transportation. So it's endless, and it's a wonderful opportunity to connect. So I want to leave you with one other thought. Take me out to the ball game, sports, any type of sports that we can connect and talk about. So being from Chicago, I'm a little biased, certainly a fan of the Chicago Cubs. And imagine walking in or being connected and people have on their Cubs hats, or perhaps you have another team that you root for. Hot dogs are being served. You smell the leather of the gloves, and perhaps people are throwing around balls, the crowd roaring in the background. There are video clips of previous games with hooting and hollering. And then during the 7th inning stretch, everyone stands up and sings, "Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with a crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Well, it's root, root, root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game." So I hope you had a sort of a glimpse of what it might feel like Now, I'll certainly keep my day job and not going into broadcast singing, but it doesn't matter. It's just the fun of it. It's a way of talking about perhaps our first baseball games or maybe attending the World Series, who we cheer for and who we do not. An opportunity again to socialize, connect, be present, and enjoying the moment. Again, an opportunity to learn how to care for and with people with any form of dementia before we find the cure. If any of you are interested in more of a one-to-one consultation, please, you can connect with me through my website called dementiacoachoncall.com. That's dementiacoachoncall.com, or call at 773-704-1834. I also want to mention that, as I said before, we are moving close to 2 years of hosting Dementia Unplugged. And that said, I would like people to know that we will be changing the format starting in January. And would love to hear if anyone has questions or I would say ways that you would like me to host this. I will be interviewing individuals live coming in January, and would love to know if you have any topics that you may be interested in. I certainly want to thank the Dementia Society of America for sponsoring Dementia Unplugged. I would encourage any of you to take a look at this wonderful website. It's all volunteer attended, wonderful resources as they relate to dementia care and caregiving and care partnering. Would also ask if you can to donate to keep the organization alive and well. And on the next slide, I will be stopping the formal recording so that I can open it up to question and answer. So start, bubbling up your questions, and then you can send it to me through live chat.